Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about two things that I came across that I do find pretty interesting. One of which is a leak, so we have to understand that it's probably not true, honestly. But we're going to go over it. It's in regards to the PlayStation 5 specs. But more importantly, I want to talk about what I think will be important with the PlayStation 5, what gamers will end up caring about most with it in regards to what we can expect from a next generation console going into 2020, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but then we're also going to talk about some PlayStation exclusive games going to PC, and we're going to talk about why Sony is maybe choosing to do this now, what the implications of it are for the future, and all of that very interesting stuff. But starting with this leak here, it says that the new details emerge about Sony's next generation PlayStation 5 console. The information comes from the same individual who is known to have leaked the exact specifications of the Wii U back in the day. He has provided a spec sheet with regards to the PlayStation 5 development kit. According to the leak, the PlayStation 5 will feature a 7nm Zen 2 CPU with 8 cores and 16 threads. The processor will run at 3.2 GHz boost clock, which is considerably faster than the current Jaguar chip. The GPU will be based on AMD's next-generation Navi architecture, capable of delivering 12.6 teraflops to 14.2 teraflops of compute performance. Further, there is 24 gigabytes of memory in total, of which 20 gigabyte GDDR6 is clocked at 880 gigabytes per second, and 4 gigabyte DDR4 is reserved for the operating system. There is a 2 terabyte hard drive on top of all that too. So the writer of this article goes on to say, I couldn't find the original forum post which details the alleged PS5 specs, but the post has been quoted at several places over the web. To be fair, I don't believe everything that is mentioned here. I mean, the 8C/16T Zen 2 CPU makes sense, but its boost clock of 3.2 GHz also doesn't sound like it's out of the realm of possibility, especially when we consider the performance of the new 7nm server chip. But when it comes to the graphics side of things, the GPU with up to 14.2 teraflops is literally the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 Ti, 13 teraflops of FP32 performance, which is insane and not happening anytime soon. That is to say, Navi would come out with a GPU offering that kind of performance. I don't believe we are getting that in a console that they are saying is going to be $499. Maybe that's because it's part of the development kit and they are using higher end Navi GPU to power it. What we are going to get in retail is more realistically around a 2070 level of performance, and of course not delivering a 13 teraflops compute power. The only reason I am bringing this up is because the leaker has a supposed history with the Wii U specs, but yeah, that sounds dubious. There's no way the PS5 GPU is going to be equivalent to a 280 Ti or 2080 Ti for $499. If that had been the case, then AMD surely would have bragged about it at CES in January, but that didn't happen. PlayStation 5 is expected to launch sometime towards the end of the year or middle of next year, given the development kits are already out there. Well, I don't know about that. I would honestly expect the PlayStation 5 most likely holiday 2020, but maybe sometime early 2020. That would be very interesting. So yeah, basically to sum up this article, the specs that are being leaked here by somebody who apparently correctly leaked the Wii U specs back in the day, they seem too good to be true. And the writer of this article does mention that this very well could be due to the fact that these are development kits, and it's pretty common for development kits to be beefed up and really not accurately representative of what the retail version is going to be. We know that with the Xbox One X, the dev kits were much more powerful in some areas than what we ended up actually getting in the Xbox One X. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't really matter. I think when we think about, is the PlayStation 5, is it going to be 9 teraflops, 10 teraflops, 11, 12? No, it's probably not going to be beyond 11 or 12. I think 12 could be the absolute max that Sony could push it, but you have to understand what Sony's goal with the PlayStation 5 is going to be. It's going to be to deliver a next generation console, a generational leap in a console when it comes to power and what they will be able to deliver, but they also need to make it affordable. They need to hit the sweet spot of, I'm assuming, $399. If they go above that, it's going to be risky on their part. They look at the success they've had with the PlayStation 4 coming out at $399. I highly doubt they're going to deviate from that. And for me, as the player, somebody who's definitely going to be paying very close attention to the next generation consoles, there's only really one thing I expect, or two things I expect, I guess you could say, from the next generation consoles, regardless of the exact specifications. That's why I don't really pay too much attention to the specifications, especially now, because these are leaks and they could just be completely made up. But what I care about and what I'm going to be looking for is I want games to hopefully run at 4K 60 comfortably. Now, I don't know if that's going to be realistically achievable. I know 4K 60 is extremely demanding, but we are talking about next generation consoles here that will be significantly more powerful. But what I will say is that if developers can't achieve a solid 4K 60 with their games because maybe they're more demanding, what I want to see developers do, and this is not up to Sony, maybe Sony can encourage it, but they can't control it. The same goes for Microsoft with their next consoles. What I hope developers do is, rather than trying to make a game look as good as it can in every area with every little detail, right, with textures and all that stuff, I hope they choose to utilize the extra power and overhead to increase the frame rate and make the game perform the best it can actually perform at, rather than trying to make it look as good as it can and still, for lock games for some reason at 30 frames a second. I think most gamers going into the next generation of consoles, what they're going to be looking for is that 60 FPS mark being hit the majority of the time. Is it going to happen every time? Of course not. It's the developer's choice, and you are going to have developers that choose not to do that. But what I don't want to see is most developers kind of rally around this idea of, we're going to use all of this extra power to just make our games look as great as they can, but not perform as good as they can. At the very least, I would like to see options. So when it comes to the PS5 and the next Xbox, but particularly with the PS5 here, that's what I'm hoping for. Of course, I want my games to look good. Buying a next generation console, you certainly expect a leap forward in graphical fidelity and resolution, right? Especially coming off of the PlayStation 4 Pro. But at the same time, that frame rate and having games perform and run better is also something that not only I'm going to be looking for, but a lot of gamers are going to be looking for. So we're going to have to see, whether or not Sony's going to be able to deliver an affordable but very powerful and capable console here. And when it comes to this leak, I don't know. I don't necessarily believe it, but I don't not believe it. I'm just kind of indifferent to it. If it's true and this is the dev kits and the specs they're going with, then I guess we could expect the PlayStation 5 to be pretty powerful. But if it's less than this, and maybe this is a little bit too good to be true in some areas, which it certainly seems like it, I'm okay with that too. Again, if Sony can create a console that hits the things that I'm looking for in the next generation console, that's what matters most to me. So moving on from that, we are going to talk about apparently some PS4/PS3 exclusives. Detroit Beyond and Heavy Rain, they're going to PC. It says here, big change is afoot for French developer Quantic Dream, and it's good news for PC gaming fans. Some of the studio's most popular games, including Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human, are coming to PC. They'll debut first on the Epic Game Store with a 1-year exclusivity window before launching on other unspecified PC stores, probably Steam. Quantic said in a press release, this is a big deal considering these games were previously not only exclusive to console, but only the PlayStation family. And in the case of Detroit, it was released as a PS4 exclusive back in May 2018, less than a year ago. The new PC releases join a variety of other new Epic Game Store exclusives announced this week. And it goes on to say, we are so grateful for 12 fantastic years of collaboration with Sony Interactive Entertainment, and all they have allowed us to create and produce, Quantic Dream co-CEO, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, said in a statement. With this new partnership with Epic, we can now expand our products to a wider fan base and allow PC players to enjoy our titles. So, yeah, this is very interesting, and a lot of people wanted me to talk about this because it seems that Sony is beginning to dip their toes in the water, which this is not new per se, because Sony has done this in the past, but I think what surprises people most about this is the fact that they're taking what seems to be a newer game and a little bit of a bigger game in Detroit Become Human, because it did just launch last year. It has been less than a year, and Sony has really kind of shown how important exclusive games are to their consoles and, in order to sell their consoles. But at the same time, we have to understand that it's pretty clear that Sony has been trying to kind of get away from Quantic Dream here, and we have to understand that this was definitely negotiations and talks that happened between Quantic Dream, Sony, and NetEase, I believe, is the company that is now heavily invested in Quantic Dream. So we have to understand that this is not necessarily a sign of anything major. Like, I've seen a lot of people kind of being like, oh, look, PlayStation is finally bringing their exclusive to PC. Like, no. If you're sitting here thinking you're going to be playing The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, the next God of War, the next Spider-Man on PC, you might want to ease up on the gas a little bit here, because I don't think that's what this means. But we do have to understand that, and I just became aware of this. I was not aware that these are IPs that apparently Sony does own. I thought at first Quantic Dream maybe owned them, and it was Quantic Dream's decision, but from what I've heard, no, Sony is the owner of these IPs, so clearly they had to greenlight this and allow it. And maybe it is a sign that Sony will kind of ease up in the future, and they're going to be more willing to bring some of their games to PC. But, it's hard to say what exactly Sony's going to do, because they're not taking the Microsoft approach here, right? They're not just saying, we're putting all our games on PC. No, they're, handpicking them and putting them, at certain times, different times. Maybe in the future we could see something where Sony releases their games on the PlayStation console first, and it stays that way for a year, and then they put it on PC after that. That could be a possibility, but again, this is just Sony kind of dipping their toes in the water, feeling it out. They don't want to say no to everything and, not keep options open. They are business. They are trying to make money. And for me, what I think about this, I mean, it's not a huge deal to me. If it was bigger exclusives, I'd be like, okay, this is definitely Sony kind of showing that they're willing to, go more into the area of being a platform holder and / service or whatever, all the stuff that I really just, it is inevitable maybe to an extent that that's what PlayStation's going towards no matter what, simply because unfortunately that seems to be where the entire industry wants to go. So inevitably Sony's going to have to start following certain things, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, you guys know I like playing on consoles. I like having physical discs. I like all this stuff. I like the traditional experience. So for me, it's a little bit disheartening to constantly see things being done that are moving slowly but surely away from that. But if there's any player within the industry right now that's going to hold on to that traditional way, at least for as long as they possibly can, it's definitely going to be Sony. And that's why I'm not really freaking out about this. So I don't know. We're going to have to see how Sony continues to approach this in the future. Maybe this is just something they're doing with just Quantic Dream for certain reasons. It's hard to say. We're just going to have to pay attention to their moves in the future and what they decide to do when it comes to putting their IPs and their games on other platforms. So yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I apologize for making it so long, but I had a lot to say on these two topics. At this point, I'm going to ask you to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I will be interested to see what you guys have to say. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. It really helps it out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that, because it helps tremendously. But until next time, guys, take care.